Now going ahead, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Chief Managing Officer of Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance, who will be speaking about recalibrating marketing strategies for the new normal. Sir, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today over here. I would thank you, Adgali, for inviting me to give a keynote to this lovely session. When I was thinking of about the topics for this keynote, and I was discussing with Vijaya and everyone at Adgali, I thought let's talk about something that has been hanging over our heads for last 2.5 years. And I know a lot of things have been said around this, but probably I'll give you a marketeer's perspective, and then I will add an insurance industry's perspective onto that. So what we have seen and experienced right now is a crisis of enormous proportions. It was a crisis, and I'm hopefully I'm right when I say it was. It was a crisis which we never could have anticipated. We could have never planned for it. And therefore, it tested all of us. It tested all of us in terms of how prepared we are. It tested our perseverance. It tested our creativity. It also tested whether we kind of nerves of steel, whether we have it or not. But before I go into that, there is one thing that I would like to probably discuss with all of you is, while yes, this was a crisis which we had never seen and anticipated, but it is not like that the crisis come once in a while. I was just trying to figure out what are the various kind of crises that have come over mankind. And you just do a simple Google search of crises since 1900s, and you will see a list of the crises that have happened over a period of time. And these crises are of various proportions, some small, probably having impact only one part of the world, some very larger, which impacted most of the world. If I just focus on just 2000s, and I don't go even back, just on 2000s, early beginning of the 2000s, we started this decade, or we started this century actually, with what we call as a dot-com bubble burst. That was a crisis which affected almost the entire world. And yes, there was a lot of realignment of priorities, realignment of businesses during that time. But that was a crisis that we saw. After that, it had been a crisis after crisis after crisis. We saw another financial crisis which came in 2008 to 2010, which actually had taken away years and years of growth of many industries, including insurance industries. We saw Venezuelan oil crisis. We have seen Russian financial crisis. We have seen Spanish financial crisis. We have seen banking crisis across various parts of the world. So it's not like that the crisis actually come just like that. We have been living with crises for years around. Two latest crises that come to my mind, other than the one big crisis that we are referring to. One was obviously a small crisis when a ship decided to just turn around in a normal kind of a steer off the course, a little steering off the course, and it managed to block the Suez Canal, and that impacted in a huge trade crisis with no movement that was being possible. We are also seeing one crisis that is happening currently where Russia and Ukraine are in conflict. So while it might not have impacted us in India directly as much, but there are parts of the world that are severely impacted by this. So there are crises that happens everywhere in the world. So having established that the crises are always with us, let's look at what this crisis of COVID-19 did to, while enough has been said about people and this thing, I would like to focus more on, since this is a gathering of marketeers and people associated with marketing, I would like to focus on consumer behavior over here. What we did was, when the crisis started impacting us, actually we went and decided to investigate. I would not call it investigate, probably find out what are the various changes in consumer behaviors that have happened. And overall, at a very large basis, we saw 7 distinct trends. that have managed to change some consumer behavior patterns. And those 7 trends, I believe, have impact on several industries, and therefore a lot of industries can benefit if we look at these 7 things. The first one was we all realized the importance of the family. Family suddenly became much more important. And it was very simple because we had ourselves to fend for. We could not meet with friends, we could not meet with acquaintances or our colleagues. It was the family that was there, and family came together to go through this crisis. So suddenly the importance of family became much more important. It was always there, but the realization probably this time was much more than before. So that was the first trend. Second trend that this virus taught us is that we are left to ourselves. We will not have any support system other than our families, obviously, but there was nothing else that would be available. You cannot call out to your friends, you cannot call out to your social circle, you cannot call out to anyone. So suddenly you realize that you are left for yourself, and self-reliance became much more important. And it became what we call as a new normal, although new normal at the beginning of the corona crisis was a very used and abused word. But self-reliance became the new normal. Third, all of us at some level would have seen some impact on our income during that point of time. A lot of organizations actually decided to hold back either increments or probably looked at reduction in the salaries. And we realized that we have to be prepared for such kind of days, what we call as a rainy day. We have to be prepared both mentally as well as financially. So people who, we are moving towards a consumption economy, but we also realize the importance of saving for a rainy day. So suddenly tendency to save will go up. So that was the third large trend. We see that the tendency to save started to go up. In addition to that, we also realized that in spite of being very financially secure and everything, we were not very sure as to what will happen to us. And we really realized that it is the time with the family, it is those small things, the joy in small things that we all started to get. So we suddenly started to treasure things that money will not buy. And those little joys in life, that realization was extremely important, because somehow we get caught up in a rat race and sometimes ignore these small joys in life. So we actually started probably realizing that these things are very important for us, and therefore treasuring things that money can't buy, that we started to do. The fifth trend that I see is, because we've seen that it has impacted everyone, and we as human beings genuinely, actually at a very core level, we all want to do good. And we realize, and you have seen a lot of examples where people came together to help people to get food grains, to help people, especially in the second wave, to get medicines for people you do not know, arranging for hospital beds. A lot of things that people started to do what we call as something for others. And therefore, we all suddenly became much more socially responsible compared to what we were before pandemic. So becoming more socially responsible was one more trend. In line with what I was saying, that we'll treasure money things can't buy, we also realize that we humans are extremely vulnerable. A small virus which you cannot even see has managed to bring the entire world to a standstill. And we realized how vulnerable we are. And that actually became the realization, that increased sense of vulnerability. And as an insurer marketer, I would also say that whenever there's an increased sense of vulnerability, that always plays good for the insurance industry. All the industries like us, which try to hedge the risks that we all face. So the sixth trend was the increased sense of vulnerability. And last, and which I'm sure all of us done, suddenly we realized that we need to be healthy. We need to have immunity in our bodies, because we didn't want the virus to impact us. So health became one of the priorities. And it took precedence over a lot of other things that we wanted to do. So overall, these are 7 trends. I'll quickly recap. Family became much more important. Self-reliance became the new normal. Our tendency to save up went up. We started treasuring things money can't buy. We became much more socially responsible. we had an increased sense of vulnerability, and health became one of our priorities. So these are the trends that we see as the changes in the consumer behavior happened because of COVID-19. Now, what did it mean for various industries? And I'm going to talk specifically about insurance industry over here. First is, I would not like to say that it was good for the industry. It was a tough time for everyone. But whenever, and I was saying earlier that whenever there's an increased sense of vulnerability, people actually look for instruments which will help them protect against such uncertainties. So insurance is one of those products. People started to look at insurance more favorably. And what do I mean by favorably? Traditionally, we always say that insurance has always been a push product. People don't want to buy insurance, and even if they realize that what is the protection that insurance offers, we have some belief on our invincibilities, and therefore we realize that probably insurance is not required. That is one reason. The second reason is also the industry itself has done a lot of bad practices earlier, and that's a hand-on-heart statement that yes, the industry was not exactly very transparent in earlier stages of the private life insurance industry. But that is a thing of past. So, but that perception still carries on. So you don't want to buy an insurance because you think you are invincible. The industry has not done enough earlier to get trust of the consumers. There's an inherent sense of mistrust. And third is the products are considered to be fairly complex. You add these through in a situation and customers actually, it becomes difficult to sell insurance products. But suddenly from the push product, we realize that insurance is now becoming kind of a pull product where consumers are actually taking interest in asking that what are the various ways in which I can look at minimizing the risk that I'm facing. So that was for the industry. Let's look at what did the industry do during this point of time. You have to realize that insurance industry is more than 100-year-old industry in the country. Now, what has happened was, in spite of a lot of advent in the digital medium and people doing a DIY kind of attitude, trying to buy everything online or doing it themselves, insurance is an industry, and I'm talking life insurance specifically, that still 90% of the sales happen when somebody is involved in between in helping you to complete that transaction or helping you to advising you which product to buy and then helping you to complete that transaction. In common parlance, that person is known as insurance agent. Now for years, this insurance agent, and I'll call it an advisor, not an agent, an insurance advisor is actually used to go meet people, convince the customer about a product that the consumer should buy, and then complete the process. But an essential part of this entire interaction was a face-to-face meeting. And that's how this person is used to selling for years and years and decades and decades. Suddenly, due to COVID, this face-to-face meeting was not happening. And therefore, this required a huge change in behavior from the advisor side to move from a face-to-face meeting to probably a digital meeting like this, what we are doing right now. But it also meant a lot of work on the insurance company itself, which actually helped to equip this advisor so that this person can sell online or through phone. That meant a huge change in the way you do business. That made a huge change in the way technology is being used. That made a huge change in which the backend is being done so that the transactions happen smoothly. So huge change that the industry saw because of this thing. And well, yes, being in the industry, I can say what was the magnitude of this change. It is not easy. It is not easy to change behavior overnight, but this COVID actually managed to do that. That was the first part. Second part, if I look from a consumer's point of view, almost all insurance companies have a surge in claims during this point of time. I'm very happy to say that the industry came together during this point of time and ensured that all claims, genuine claims, were passed without any problems. The industry has stood by with the customers during this point of time in ensuring that all claims were processed in quick time, irrespective of whether the offices were functioning or not, the claims were being passed. And that's how the industry actually came together. And that is what we call as when the road meets the rubber, or the true moment of truth, where consumers needed us and the industry came together. So that was the second part. Third part, the way I would say the industry has managed to come together. Insurance is essentially was an essential service, and therefore, while yes, the country was under lockdown, the insurance companies were working. Almost all insurance companies, in addition to being consumer focused, were heavily employee focused. All insurance companies invested a lot of time in understanding the problems that the employees were going through, including mental health, and took a lot of steps. But yes, we are marketeers, and how can I not talk about communication when we are talking about how industry responded? I think the entire industry actually quickly moved to products which were the need of the hour. So one need of the hour was protection products, which is pure term insurance product. The industry actually managed to make the process much more smoother for customers to offer insurance product. The second, I think, which is more important, was realization that we need to, and I was talking about the trends, that the tendency to save will go up. Insurance industries actually came together and started offering products which offered guarantees during this time, especially when nothing was being guaranteed.
Regarding the same, today's agenda will be to demonstrate a landing page for the upcoming event.
There is some ambient noise which I can hear. If somebody can go on mute.
Please note that this design was made by keeping limited amount of data in mind. So let's proceed with the design. The first section would be.
Okay. Thank you. Where was I? Yeah. When consumer wanted to save more, they're also looking at products which will give them regular income as well as guaranteed over a period of time. A lot of companies, including Edelweiss Tokyo Life, Bajaj Allianz, HDFC Life, ICICI Pru, all the names that you can think of came up with products which were suitable for this kind of environment. In terms of communication, a lot of companies actually focused on empathizing with the customers and coming up with this product. While yes, I can talk about my company's products and my company's communication in favor of neutrality, I would like to talk about an amazing communication that HDFC Life put up, especially about the COVID batch, what is called as the students which never, for 2 years, which never went to college, and somehow we were all thinking that they're a COVID batch, and whether they understand, because since they have not gone to colleges or schools, they probably have not the wholesome experience. And that is what HDFC Life actually addressed through their communication. A wonderful piece of communication. If you have not seen it, I would request all of you to see it. Bajaj Allianz came up with a lot of focus on their products. We actually got, at that point of time, Sonu Sood with us, and we actually managed to talk a lot to all of our distributor community about the need for protecting consumers' interest at this point of a time. So if you see, I would see the industry has really come together during this point of time. And what this experience has taught us, and I really, really hope that this experience is really behind us, because we really, thankfully, with our offices opening and this thing, I have a option to meet our colleagues in large gatherings, even industry colleagues in industry forums, and the energy and that exchange of ideas that happen in physical is something else. But yes, these kind of events actually manage to keep us together. And thanks to people, our industry forums like AdGully, which managed to get all of us together, even virtually or physically. And this exchange of ideas really helped to keep our juices flowing. Because what also got impacted during this time was creativity. Somehow, instead of creativity, we move towards transaction because that's what the medium allows it to do. But interactions like this actually try to steer away from those transactions to being more creative. And that's what we all marketers need to be. We need to be more creative. I believe that this pandemic has taught us to be more resilient. We actually, I think for people who started working with me, that was late 90s, I actually see, we have seen the dot-com burst, we have seen the 2008 crisis, we have seen 2012 crisis, now we have seen this crisis. So now I started feeling ki ho gaya, enough of this crisis, but you never know. As I said, crisis are constant companions. I think what it has reinforced a belief in all of us that come what may, whatever be the situation, I said, we will pull through. We will pull through because we can adapt. We can change the way we do business. We can change the way we communicate, and we can think by keeping customers at the front and thinking of their benefit. I hope there are examples of such changes that we have done across industries, from the industry that you belong. And during this session, I'm sure in a lot of panel discussions and other discussions, those examples will come out. What I would request all of you is probably to start documenting these, because I don't want a situation where this remains in memories of all of us and is never being as what is called as things that worked during this time, so that it is a guide to future crises. So let us all put together, and I think I would request AdGully if they can take up this initiative and trying to document this, that how each industry is reacted to this crisis and how they have come out of this. With this, I would like to thank the team at AdGully for inviting me this, and I really hope that you have a wonderful time today at this conference, CMO Charcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.